Hey y'all, so I'm here to talk about the DJED pillar, the ancient Egyptian DJED pillar. So I want to try to talk about what the DJED pillar is in 10 minutes or less. Okay, so what is the DJED pillar? First, I'm going to give you the historian's basic definition of what the DJED pillar is, and then I'm going to tell you what it actually is. Okay, so the historians say that the ancient Egyptian DJED pillar is a symbol that represents what they'll tell you is that it represents the backbone of Osiris. That's the main definition they're going to tell you when you look for the definition or the meaning of the Jed pillar. They're going to tell you the backbone of Osiris. What they also might say is that the Jed pillar represents stability. And they don't really go much deeper than that. Now, I don't know if they don't do it because they don't know. And I'm starting to think a lot of people don't know this. And that maybe I'm the only person though, or maybe it's some very elite people that do know who just don't talk about it. So what the Jed pillar really is. Now, first let me say this. The ancient Egyptians, when they uh put something into their field of study or knowledge base with knowledge database and stuff, they didn't just do one layer of it. They did it in multiple layers. So you might get its physical realm meaning, you might get its material realm meaning, you might get um its astrological meaning, its spiritual meaning, you know what I'm saying? So it's so many layers that they like to go into. They like to cover all the bases of something. So now with the jade pillar, like I said, the historians will tell you it's the backbone of Osiris and it represents stability. Is that true? Yes and no. Why is it a yes and no? I'm saying it's yes and no because yes, it is from the perspective that it does represent something relative to the backbone. But I'm saying no, and it is relative to stability. But I'm saying no, it's not because you're gonna always have somebody say, "Well, if it is, then how is it that if Osiris is not a real person?" Okay, so who is Osiris? Osiris or Osar in ancient Egypt was the consort or husband of Isis, a Set. Now, he was a god figure in the afterlife, the realm called the Duat, or sometimes called Amenta. And this is where the souls go after they transition, after they die. When they transition, they go to the Duat realm. And in the Duat realm, that's where you gotta be your heart gotta be weighed against the feather. You gotta go through these tests and trials or what they call gates to be able to pass through these gates or whatever to before you can get to paradise. Paradise will be at the end of the Duat journey, and paradise will be what they call Aru. But you can't get to Aru unless you can pass the gates or the tests and trials of the journey of the soul in transition, which is in the Duat. So um, the Duat is actually this realm that we live in right now. Why am I losing my voice when I'm doing this audio? So the Jed pillar, what it actually is in real time. The Jed pillar is a multi-tiered database of the worlds. And when I say the worlds, I'm saying that there are four or more worlds. Now, we think that we are all existing in this one world, but we're not. So, first of all, you have to realize that we're in a assimilated realm. And when they decided to create this simulated realm and put the real Americans into this simulated realm, then there was a simulated version of America. And that's what we're in right now. Now, when they first created this simulated version of America, it was just Americans. You know what I'm saying? So we was basically the first Pangea, right? And so our um our main area was we spent our time around the water around the Gulf. So we were on both sides of the Gulf, which they call the Gulf of Mexico. Now it was necessary for Donald Trump to start calling it the Gulf of America because that's what it is in the first world, the Gulf of America, and it became the Gulf of Mexico in the second world. Okay, so when it was the Gulf of the Americas, when or America, we copper tones, copper complected indigenous people of America, we was around the waters on both sides. We would go around both sides. We stayed on both sides. You know what I'm saying? Before we went further into the land that we call America, we was on both sides. We stayed around the water of the bayous and stuff. We stayed around the water. Now, um, like I said, the ancient Egyptians do things in layers. So then they wanted to do our spiritual reflection of that physical simulation realm, right? And so that's when World 2 was created. So World 2 is basically like 1B, like the other half of one. You know what I'm saying? But it's World 2. Now World 2 ended up becoming South America. Okay, so when it extended past Mexico, it became South America. So North America was World One, and South America was World Two. The World One represented the flesh, the physical. World Two became the spirit realm. That's why they was represented by blue skin. So the blue skin, like in Avatar. If you look at the movie Avatar, um, our beginning story started was on Avatar Part Two. I'm not gonna say the beginning, but the most the part that we can relate to the most in this time is part two, the waterways. So when the other galactics saw what was done, they was in admiration as well as envy of what we had going on over here in Americas. And so these other so-called gods or galactic leaders, they decided they wanted to have a version, assimilated version of their bloodlines or whatever. And so they that's when the creation of the third world came, and the third world was Africa. Now the people over Africa, instead of being creative or whatever, they just basically copy pasted the American stories. They copy pasted everything about America. They hacked into the program, took the information, like literally they hacked into it. It wasn't something that they was authorized to do. This was a brotherhood who did this against the wishes of the matriarch Tiamat. So they hacked into the system, and then they copied, pasted everything about the Americas and just changed names and stuff and called it the motherland. You know what I'm saying? So that's how we started being hearing the narrative that Africa is the motherland. No, that was a computer virus that created that narrative, right? Computer hacking. So what Africa did was created from was they took everything from here and made it their story, but just changed some of the names. But they wasn't even creative enough to um fluctuate to switch up the names. They just switched up um vowels and stuff like that. So they gave um the each one of the continents vowels. So America, North America was A, South America was E, like that. And so I'm gonna do another video about the vowels. But they, like if you ever notice that some of the places that's dealing with Africa, they have the same names as some of uh the indigenous tribes and stuff like that. They have some of the same names. So like if you might hear over here, it's a Quina, and then I mean Quinapisa for Indian tribe, but over there in Africa you're gonna hear Guinea-Bissau. That's the same thing. So whereas we have Angola over here, meaning the Gullah, our Angola is referring to the Gullah, but they have Angola over there. But it has nothing to do with the Gullah. It's over there. It's the Gola, right? So they pretty much copied everything. And so like the main copy of Louisiana would be in South Africa. That's why they had that recent Zulu beef between Louisiana Zulu and the South African Zulu, because the third world created the narrative that South Africa is the motherland of humanity, when Louisiana and Mississippi is the mother and fatherland of all, of all the people, right? So anyway, like I said, so the J pillar, those slots on those little four rows on the J pillar represents the four worlds, and it is the backbone because it's found in the place of, or symbolized in the place of, the area between the head and shoulders, right? Right above the backbone, right at the top of the spine. So that's how it's the backbone, right? That's how it's the backbone. And why is it the backbone of Osiris? Because Osiris represents the Americans. Osiris is in the realm of the first world, the Americans. So first, Egypt, the first place that's connected to Egypt is America, where Louisiana is the ancestral homeland, motherland of the ancient Egyptians, called Punt. Is also connected to what they call Waset. That's Washita. You know what I'm saying? And on the other side of the Gulf is Wasteka. So that's what the Jed pillar represents. And so a lot of people don't know that. I don't think nobody know. I don't think I'm the only person I ever heard say that. But that's what it is, and I get this information. I never read it nowhere, so don't ask me for no source because I've never read that anywhere, and I've got argued that what I'm saying is not true. But this is channeled information. I get this information from my ancestors that communicated it to me. So I can't give you no sources on that. But I'm just letting y'all know that's what the Jed pillar is. That's what the Jed pillar is. Okay? So that's the end of my little quick 10-minute or less video about the JED pillar, and I hope you have a better understanding of what it is. Peace.